Hey, church, hope you're well. Hope you're dry today, waiting for that atmospheric river to flow through here. We need the rain, so it's good. Not sure if you are reading through our daily scriptures with us or not, but either way, we are in the middle of Paul's letter, first letter to Timothy. Just a brilliant letter. I mean, every part of scripture is brilliant, but this is brilliant in its own way. And chapter 4 today, Paul speaks about training, and really struck me partly what he writes here. I am just this week trying to get back into running. I've been gotten off track a bit because I strained my calf earlier this year, and then had COVID, and so I've gotten kind of out of it. And it's whenever you stop doing an exercise and get back into it, it's just painful. So today was the second day that I've run this week, and it just it didn't feel good. I wouldn't say it was enjoyable, but I'm committed. I'm trying to be committed, like a lot of you, to keeping my body in shape. Partly because, I want to remain healthy and hang around as long as I can, but also, things just go better when you exercise in a lot of ways. Our bodies are not just physical; they're tied to the rest of us. And I found it interesting in this part of the letter, Paul says to Timothy, basically, hey, physical training, exercise has some value. And Paul's one who often uses metaphors of running and other physical sport even. And so he was familiar with it and obviously appreciated it. I'm not sure whether Paul was a runner or a weightlifter or a wrestler or what he did, but he at least appreciated the fact that we can keep in shape physically. But then he goes on and says that spiritual training is of greater value. Let me just read this one or two verses here. This is chapter 4, verses 7 to 8. Paul says, train yourself in godliness. For while physical training is of some value, godliness is valuable in every way, holding promise for both the present life and the life to come. Spiritual training, he says, is of greater value, much, much greater value than even physical training. He says specifically, we should train ourselves in godliness. That's just a fancy way of talking about what we talk about a lot around here, is that we are seeking to be disciples of Christ, apprentices of Jesus, to become like him, that we would live life as he would live life if he was in our shoes. That's what it means to be godly, to reflect God, to reflect his character, to think like he thinks, to act like he acts. And Paul's saying you need to train in that. And he says it's valuable in every way, in every aspect of life. The more we become like Christ, that impacts everything we do, not just the way we worship on a Sunday morning or read our Bibles and pray, but the way we engage with neighbors and do our work and commit to relationships and interact in the political realm and the rest of it. It's valuable for every way of life. And I love how he says it's valuable for this life and the life to come. As we've talked about many times, I think the thing that we present God with at the end of our lives is the person we've become. God, I don't think, is as much interested in what we do and accomplish. He is, but God doesn't need us for those things. What God is most interested is the person you become. And he wants it to become godly like him. And so it's valuable at the end of our lives to present God with a life that has become, is full of godliness. But it's valuable for this life as well. And, this training in godliness is a lifelong pursuit. One of the differences between spiritual training and physical training is that physical training, we diminish. I'm 56 years old, 57 years old, and I can't do physically the things that I could do when I was 47 or much less 37 or 27. That part of my life is diminishing, and I'm okay with that. But spiritually, we can continue to grow into our 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s. That's an area where we don't diminish, and training continues to help us become more and more like Christ. There's a kind of a fallacy that is around in terms of not just the spiritual life, but it's this idea that really what's most important in training is trying, effort. And some wise people have put it this way: it's a difference between trying and training. If you're trying to run a marathon, 26.2 miles. For me right now in my life, I've never run a marathon, but if I went out and tried today to do it in under 8 hours, it doesn't matter how much I try, I can't do it. But as we've talked about here before, if I train for a marathon, spend the next 6, 9 months training, there's a good chance I could run a marathon in a decent time for someone my age. It's not just a matter of trying, but a matter of training. And this is true in the spiritual life as well. For instance, if you and I went out today and said, I'm really going to really use my willpower to try my best to really think about God's agenda rather than my own agenda. We could try to do that, but I'll just speak for myself pretty quickly. It just falls away because I'm not in spiritual shape always in that way. And so it's training in the Christian life, which is most important. Great example right now, we're preaching through the Lord's Prayer. As we may not be able to think about God's agenda and set our hearts and minds accordingly, but we can train and pray the Lord's Prayer every day and keep doing it. As we keep training, eventually our hearts and minds shift, and so that we don't even have to try. It just becomes natural that we think along God's agenda because we've been allowing the Lord's Prayer to shape us. And that's the real difference between training and trying. And so I just want to keep encouraging you as a community here. We're a bit like you join a gym to do physical training. The church community is a bit like a gymnasium, but for spiritual matters. So we are working together to exercise and to do practices and disciplines and rhythms in life to train that we together, collectively and individually, might become more like Christ, that we would grow in godliness. So hope that's an encouragement for you today, and wherever you are today, may you sense the love of God as your Father, the grace of Christ his Son, and the presence of the Spirit. Peace.